Hello and most welcome to 2013. Merry special year, the year of the horse.
The year of the horse. These horses are in Scotland, located between Falkirk and Mouth. They're called the Kelpies, and they are relevant for today's lecture, if not for the Wittgenstein quotation here in the beginning of the paper. You see, in philosophizing, one must descend into the primordial chaos. Feel at home there.
Yes, definitely.
And here, they're actually descending into the chaos or out of the chaos. Oh, hee-haw. So the sculptor is Andy Scott. Okay, let's start now with time.
Let's do that. We continue the lecture from 2012. Bodily self-knowledge as a special form of perception. Last time it was a little introduction into a new way of viewing perception as coming both from inside and outside in proprioception. Proprioception is intransitive. It does not take an object. For instance, it doesn't take that there is a tree outside or a cat. It is just proprioception. And in that way, it could be said to be without content, contentless. Speaking from topology and quantum mechanics, I argue for that proprioception is similar to what is before the collapse of the wave function, the probability wave. And that it is also close to the Alexander good posture, the primary control that rules everything. The primary control is itself contentless. It is not a specific feeling, a way of being. It's not an array of angles or correctness. It is the freeness. It's the freeness, the openness of the attitude, unperturbed, undisturbed, but also unstable. Remember David McNeill, who showed that the instability between gesture and language is what makes for the possibility of going forward, for meaning, for saying something. We can also compare with Ian McGilchrist, the right hemisphere. The right hemisphere is in contact reality, not the representations or the superficial things. Superficial on the surface. You can compare that to empty concepts. Empty concepts.
Empty concepts.
Empty concepts. Yee-hoo! It is also the potential for everything, since it is in a way it's a nothing, as it's a zero, and as a zero it can actually give room to everything. All, if it didn't have content, it wouldn't be able to access everything. It would be limited in a constrictive way, not making it possible to leap forward.
Leap.
Callum made a nice leap here. This leaping forward, we've spoken about that many times, is the staticness. Something becomes static. Stone logic, in contrast to water logic. In water logic, you have a flow coming from Edward de Bono, the thought guru from Great Britain / Malta, who thought for a more encompassing thinking his whole life. The fixed thinking he called stone logic.
No, rock logic.
Rock logic? I thought it was stone.
Almost stone logic.
It could have been stone logic or rock logic.
But I don't know.
It's cut in stone or cut in rock. Yeah, maybe it equals. A rock that you can't move easily, and it's not easily formable. Inflexible, doesn't make for easiness of molding, forming. Think of the water, the river. The river can only be permanent, moving, changing, if we don't see rock logic, yes, if we don't see the water as disturbed, not fixed, not with the content, intransitive. Can you see the parallel here? A water that's not fixed is without content. That is a necessity for it to be what it is, permanent, eternal, filled with meaning, or a possible meaning bearer. You could also say a potentiality. For it to have potentiality or meaning, it must be contentless. To understand, it cannot have a prefixed understanding, as in the rock logic. It cannot be cut in stone.
Why not content and non-content at the same time in the superposition?
The contentless makes it also an implicit understanding. I was thinking of David Bohm with his implicit knowledge. The implicitness was also equal to proprioception.
Yes. Bohm's implicit knowledge, yes.
Proprioception is the ability to acquire whatever you want, just like water. It is flexible, it can take any shape whatsoever. So, yeah, of course, one can say it contains all shapes, but it is before. It's in the beforeness of the collapse. Since it is a zero, it is also infinity. You can compare it to the Lemmings gate. Two zeros made out to be a Möbius strip. Something I will get back to later on. The Möbius strip. The Möbius strip. Having the capacity for everything and nothing. I will continue to read where I left off at page 81. Page 81. It's the third paragraph. It's the third paragraph. It is also true that the answer, because I felt so, appeals to something whose content is exactly the same as that of what is to be justified. Which make us doubt whether the appeal can provide real justification. Real justification. But this point can be met by extending an idea of McDowell's own to the present context. To the present context. Present context. The present context. He has, in well-known work and in a different context, rightly argued that sensory experiences can provide justification for judgments, affirming precisely the same contents. For instance, that there looks to be a green tree in front of me can be a reason for me to think exactly that. Oh no. Yeah. Oh no. It is true that sensory experiences in McDowell's original discussion involve sensations of secondary qualities. but because he has not really shown that proprioception is anesthetic, and because the use of feel or felt in proprioceptive contexts seems to be sensuous in nature. We can extend his original idea to the proprioceptive case. The proprioceptive case. The identity of content between a proprioceptive experience and a matching judgment does not preclude the former from playing a justificatory role for the latter. For the latter. In sum, feeling so is a reason for thinking so in proprioception too. In proprioception too. Feeling so. Very good. 8. A digression. Before developing a substantive account of proprioceptive feels or sensations, I shall digress a bit and note a difference between observation and perception. Which I have so far treated as equivalent. Equivalent, equivalent, equivalent. The idea of observation connotes a certain distancing. The object of observation is held by the observer at arm's length. It is transitive. Transitive. This distancing is not literally spatial, but rather a matter of adopting a certain attitude. Attitude. Attitude or position, fixed position. This attitude may be called the contemplative or objectifying attitude. Because what it does is objectify the object, treating it as something other. This attitude is the fundamental posture of the mind. The characteristic attitude of theoretical reason. Now, the notion of perception also connotes the presence of this attitude, at least in many of its uses. But and this is the difference. In some uses, it does not. It does not. It does not. One such use concerns immersed perceptual experiences.
Immersed.
Got a bit of a shock here.
I threw coffee at Hans.
Good one. I needed that shock. Now I'm awake.
The coffee cup was empty.
I'll miss you, Kalle. Please don't go. One such use concerns immersed perceptual experiences, as we might call them. For instance, a man attending a concert might be so immersed in the music that he feels nothing exists except the music And he might say, though only afterwards, that he lost himself in the music. Such a man is perceiving, but not observing. It has become intransitive. He is the music.
Yummy,
Indeed,
yummy, yummy.
certainly, it is somewhat artificial to draw this contrast. But drawing it requires only a slight conceptual regimentation and compensates us well. Compensates us well. It makes available a non-observational notion of perception.
Perception,
Perception.
perception.
Perception. Which does not objectify or alienate its objects. No alienation, no alienation.
No alienation. Yum, yum.
It is, of course, this notion of perception that I shall develop and claim for proprioception. Proprioception.
Proprioception.
Note that the kind of distancing involved in assuming the contemplative attitude should not be confused with the special midway distance.
Midway.
Midway.
Midway. Broadway. I want to sing at Broadway. Midway.
Between one's mind and body, that was discussed in paragraph 7. In paragraph 7. For the former is purely mental. Whereas the latter concerns both mind and body. But both these notions help sustain the idea that proprioception, despite being a form of self-knowledge is perceptual in a special sense. By making intelligible a notion of perception that does not objectify or alienate its objects. Alienate its objects, right hemisphere take. Inclusive. Inclusive, taking everything in. Ton logon, muton logon. Nine. The Ayers-McDowell thesis. McDowell's general considerations discussed earlier are used by him to reinforce a specific point. Which I shall call the Ayers-McDowell thesis. The thesis says, there is no perception of spatial properties without perception of secondary qualities. Qualities. With this, we can neatly sum up an argument for the Anscombe McDowell view. To begin with, perception of spatial properties requires perception of secondary qualities. Secondary. But in proprioception, there is no perception of secondary qualities.
Yummy.
The no content thesis, considered by Wittgenstein, yet in proprioception, we do know various spatial properties of one's own body. So this knowledge is non-perceptual. Non-perceptual. The argument is valid, but its first premise, the Ayers-McDowell thesis, is disputable. What? It's up for dispute. Oh no! Poor Ayers
Yes.
and McDowell.
McDowell.
Scotland. We just had the horses, and now, oh no.
I had a cow. Mua mia mo.
Na, 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 na.
McDowell had a farm. Hia, hia, ho.
Hee-ya-hee-ya-ho, hee-ya-hee-ya-ho. The basic idea behind this thesis is this: perception of spatial properties must be qualitatively mediated by perception of secondary qualities. This is surely true of vision. Without perceiving the secondary qualities proper to this sense, that is, colors, one cannot perceive spatial properties. Thus, for instance, one cannot see a round plate without seeing some colors. Some colors. The idea is also true of hearing. Hearing, hearing, or earrings. I used to have earrings. I hear ing, ding. For instance, one cannot hear music coming from the right without hearing some sounds. But why must the perception of spatial properties be mediated by that of secondary qualities? Of secondary qualities. Aftin op Miron.
Because you have
Ejes.
little power.
Dynami.
Dynamic.
Dynami. Dynami. Dynamic power. Why in particular can it not be mediated by the perception of primary qualities? The possibility, which I shall argue, is exactly that we need to substantiate the idea of proprioception as a special form of perception is never considered by McDowell. This is not surprising as he thinks that the Ayers-McDowell thesis, which rules out this possibility, is underwritten by general considerations concerning self-knowledge and receptive knowledge. But as we saw, those general considerations are not compelling. Not. Poor Ayers and McDowell, not compelling, will be the last for 2013, and I put pause. So I argue for here, and also in lieu of a bit against McDowell Ayers from Scotland, maybe. I think actually Ayers could be a Scottish name. The intransitive, the zero or the contentless, has, so to speak, implicitly both wave, and this symbol means and not, or either. The particle, everything is contained in the zero. This is what makes it intransitive. It doesn't take a definitive. Therefore, it has all, and therefore it has nothing. And I like this idea because we're speaking of the things that has anything. We usually call perception of something, I perceive something. But it's a sloppy slope. So you can see it this as the zero and something popping out. And in the next, this is the next picture, you have a distance, so to speak. This is transitive. Now it's more in the standard of being perception, a sense data. So you perceive this, something that from the beginning was completely inclusive. And all of a sudden, this is a grasping. This is more in the direction, if you want to have a hint, of Ian McGilchrist's left hemisphere. And this including is more in the right side, not definite, but more in that side. This plopping off is very interesting because that is a connection and a parallel to quantum mechanics. And although this was easy, intransitive proprioception, the contentless, it doesn't have a content in this way, it doesn't have an object. Proprioception. Perception. So, space in quantum mechanics can easily be depicted in the use of a donut. We start there with the donut because think of this, have this in mind, the plopping off. It's the establishing of an externality to something that is all inclusive. This is pretty close to the donut. It has a sort of inner emptiness, or a thing, if you like. The donut is absolutely equal to, for instance, a cup or a mug, because this one can be molded into that one. Whereas it cannot be molded into a circle because of the hole is going to be at some point lost in the molding process. So it's a transformation from this to that. And since there is no time and space in quantum mechanics, this actually makes these equal. So a muffin and a tea mug are actually the same, whereas this is different. You can compare that to objectification, that there is a something somehow. The donut owns the interior, which could also be an exterior grasping, very close to this one. Only that the whole, the other circle is connected, but still at arm's length distance. The distance here is very important because this is the only distance you have in quantum mechanics. You don't have a meter distance, a millimeter distance. This is in quantum mechanics distance. There, I found some really nice illustration on the net. I'll try to show them when I go through the quotes here, if I can find them. Who's recording?
Coffee mug is equivalent to a donut.
So here you can see how
Because
the
they
coffee
both have
mug
one
turns
hole,
into
a mug can be
donut.
continuously deformed into a donut and vice versa, as if it is made of clay or rubber. If both a donut and a mug have one hole, how many holes does a straw have? You might say it has two
I will
holes,
not play
one where
too
the
much of
liquid comes
this.
out and one where the liquid is sucked in. But imagine if we made a straw shorter, and by short, I mean really short. At this point, the straw looks just like a donut and it clearly has one hole.
So you see, I'm going to show one more time here.
Because they both
These
have one
objects
hole,
are
a
actually
mug can be continuously
same
deformed
force,
into a
same
donut and vice
same
versa,
here.
as if it is
Why?
made of
The
clay or rubber.
transformation comes afterwards.
If both a donut and a mug have one hole,
This
how
is
many
quantum
holes does a
physics.
straw have? You might say it has two holes, one where the liquid comes.
So you can see that there is a nice connection between quantum mechanics and proprioception, as already suggested by David Bohm many years ago. And I really like this page.
Och du ville ha risotto?
It also goes
Ja,
into,
precis. Det blev...
the Möbius strip and tries to explain the Möbius strip and the Klein bottle. So we can understand them from our perspective in 3 dimensions. I think that was the best tryout to really get the grip of that. Sorry about the advertising.
Advertising.
Advertising, it's a bother.
It's invention of the devil.
The devil. Yeah, definitely.
It will always have one hole. Manifold. In simple terms, it's anything.
And here,
Cutting
if we
anything in
have
half,
fantastic thing
the movie
with
strip
the
in half.
Möbius strip.
It
Even
doesn't
if we
split into two.
split it in two,
But how?
we still
Keep
have one
in
hole.
mind there is only one continuous
It doesn't
boundary.
go into two
Since the
parts.
cut in the middle never gets to the boundary, the strip doesn't cut into separate pieces. Another way to intuitively visualize this is potential logical grandfather when he was still a child strip.
And this is also
Let's represent a timeline on the surface of a movie strip. Suppose in 2021 you gain access to a time machine for unknown reasons, and you decide to travel back in time to kill your grandfather when he was still a child, still for unknown murderous reasons. So now you're back in 1940 and you kill your grandfather. If your grandfather is dead as a kid in
problem, are you disappearing? Now it's recording. So here The point here with my added quantum mechanical thing was that he starts with observation and perception. So to pedagogically lead the way to make a difference between proprioception and perception of something, a thing. And the observation used in this way, in this article, is more fixed. It's something that has become objectified. It takes an object. I take the liberty here to call it transitive. You can call it other things like accusative maybe, but transitive neatly sums in that it takes something else to be. It wouldn't make any sense to say that take a transitive verb, I paint. You need to say I paint the house or something like that. It needs an object. This is similar. And he begins by someone who gets lost in music, the third paragraph, that he lost himself in music. Such a man is perceiving, but not observing. Go to the next paragraph, it's neatly put. But drawing, it requires only a slight conceptual regimentation and compensates us well. It makes available a non-observational notion of perception. The circle, the superposition that contains everything and nothing, which does not objectify or alienates its object. It is, of course, this notion of perception that I should develop, and so on and so on. And then, Kalle, please come in. That was the end of my sojourn.
Thank you.
You are most welcome.
82, page 82.
Page 82.
The idea of observation connotes a certain distancing. The object of observation is held by the observer at arm's length.
Arm's length.
So this reminds me of Heidegger's 400 200, and I'm asking why Tang doesn't refer to Heidegger here. So 200, as we know, is something that is used for tools that you use every day, like eyeglasses. You don't observe them really.
No.
They are there,
Yeah.
but only when they break, you will observe them. Then the eyeglasses will become 400. And when you go, for instance, to a museum and you observe something, perhaps it's a mix of 400 and 200. Probably you could say it's healthy. The ideal is probably to have them both 400 and 200 in a mix. Although Heidegger doesn't say that explicitly.
No.
He wants to wake us from our sleep, so to say, to out of living, and then you need a shock, so to say.
Yeah, you need coffee all over you. Very good.
Let me take up Dan's example with the music. It was like 82. Feels nothing except the music. It was on the same page.
Yeah, this often happens to me with classical music, like Handel or Bach.
So I will underline here, nothing is already in italics, nothing exists except the music. So we could ask ourselves, is this correct observation by affirmation by Tang? If we compare with rabbit and duck image by Wittgenstein, we could say it's correct. because Wittgenstein says that we see only one animal at a time.
Oh.
Is one aspect at a time.
Oh yeah, it's like the superposition is.
It has already collapsed.
Indeed.
But we have to still be careful. We know from with this example from that our friend Feuerabend discusses this with the boiling water. When you're reading, you're immersed in reading, but you're still, or should be, aware that the water is boiling.
Yeah, you should be, yeah. But you're not always sure. Very good, yeah. I like that.
So this is Feuerabend's
I usually Feyerabend's examples are really pedagogical. He's a master of that.
And let me go back. So, is this correct? Nothing exists except the music. Is both correct and not correct? Of course, if you create a music lover, but if there is a fire, using the metaphor of boiling, metaphor in the music hall, of course the music will stop playing then. But you should be aware of the fire earlier of the smoke. So I don't think that nothing exists except the music is really possible. It should not be possible if you are healthy.
Yeah, sure.
But okay, let's say with the duck, rabbit. So Wittgenstein would say, you see only one thing at a time. But he doesn't say that you're not aware of your surroundings. That is something different.
No. To some extent, you're probably aware.
And you mentioned this, we are speaking much about contentless.
Yeah.
There we have it. It's
there you have it. But in proprioception, there is no perception of secondary qualities. The no content thesis considered by Wittgenstein. It has nothing and it has all.
Yes, that's what I would also say. That is something contentless. I would say no. It is both contentless and it has content. Let me give an illustration. We could paint a ball, football, or Qigong ball. That's even better. It's contentless, but it has also all. A football, it's contentless. It doesn't really contain anything.
Exactly, that's zero. Zero has everything.
And people like to speak about, especially atomists, they like to speak about the atom. Everything is with atom. Everything is with atom. Okay, why not? If he, but I would emphasize this as Qigong atom. Then you need actually not. Atomists forget that it's atom. An atom is not like a dot.
Yeah.
But it's more like a ball. That is, you have the both sides.
Exactly.
A Qigong, a man holding a Qigong atom, I think is best. You have the both sides. A Qigong ball would also actually illustrate the 2012 experiment in the Canary Islands perfectly.
Anton Seilinger, good old Anton entanglement.
And the best way to illustrate actually is that a Qigong ball, not an atomic. Atom is not incorrect. But we have to remember it's like a Qigong atom that you actually hold on both sides of the atom.
That's the oddity. Actually, the entanglement. This is too complicated, but next time I'll bring it up. Remember the donut turning into the teacup. That is actually what entanglement is. But I don't ask you to understand this now. But that is a very good depiction of entanglement. One thing turns into another is what we, so to speak, Newtonian, understand as space and time. I'm sorry, this is really weird. It will blow your mind. But as you say, atomists only see the one side. I think that it can only be.
It's not a dot.
No, it's not a dot only. Not only a dot. This is actually all as well. It contains everything. Should we?
Let's end there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kalilundo. Excellent comments as usual. And thank you for the coffee scare. It gave me the shock I needed to finish off here. Have a very pleasant morning, day, or afternoon. Bye bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you.